I almost feel like I have to defend this movie from the overly harsh critics of the internet. You might be thinking, why would you need to defend a movie that has a 92% Rotten Tomatoes score and has an overall positive critic reception? Well, because there's guys like this guy who think that the movie is bad because it isn't a carbon copy of the Sam Raimi trilogy. To start this video off, I will admit that yes, this movie has its flaws. A good portion of humor in this movie doesn't land, but there are more than a few laugh out loud moments to make up for it. And the film does a poor job at illustrating the devastating effects the snap had on the world at large. They did a small bit of exposition in the beginning, but it kinda just jumps right into the story without addressing any of the real world consequences. For the most part, it brushed the snap off as a joke on more than one occasion, although one joke in particular was absolutely hilarious. They also refer to everyone being dusted away as being blipped. I guess they had to call it something, but it's just a little gag they threw in to lighten the mood. From a narrative standpoint, it really wouldn't do the film good to start off on a gloomy and post-apocalyptic setting. Spider-Man Far From Home, much like Homecoming, is a high school comedy at its heart with superhero stuff mixed in. You also need to understand that this isn't just an Endgame follow-up. It's also its own movie with a completely different director and writers behind the wheel. So I give the movie credit for not taking itself too seriously. If you can turn off your brain to the fact that it's a huge coincidence that every single one of Peter's classmates happened to blip out of existence so they would still be the same age, then you'll probably enjoy this movie. As a takeaway from the movie as a whole, a little bit, but it's not at all the fault of the director or writers. It has everything to do with Endgame and the fact that this movie is a part of a larger shared universe. If you can deal with that, you can deal with all the other flaws the film has to offer. With that out of the way, I want to address something that people have been complaining about since Homecoming, and even though this movie completely debunks the whole criticism in one line of dialogue, I feel obligated to mention it because people like CinemaSins can't see past it. To illustrate this, here's a clip of his video on Homecoming.
Gotta admit, I'm not a fan of the Stark Spidey suit. Spider-Man is cool because he's smart enough to build a suit himself. I don't need another Iron Man, thank you very much.
Peter's whole character arc in Homecoming was learning that he's more than just a suit. He's still Spider-Man with or without Tony's help, and to ignore that proves that you want everything exactly the same as every other Spider-Man movie we've seen in the past decade. Also, Peter is 15 years old. What do you mean he's smart enough to build his own suit? He's definitely smart, he created his webbing on his own, but to say you don't like his suit because Tony built it is just dumb. You don't need a PhD to stitch together some spandex. It's literally all that Raimi's Spider-Man did. He didn't make his web shooters, and the reboot with Andrew Garfield showed Peter building his web shooters, but Homecoming's Peter did that also. You were just looking for a reason to hate this Spider-Man. It was just an awful criticism. At the end of Homecoming, Peter chooses to remain a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man on his own terms. This film explores just how important being an Avenger is and what it means to be a member of Earth's mightiest heroes. You sometimes need to sacrifice your personal life to uphold your duties as a superhero. Peter struggles with this much in the same way Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man did in the original trilogy. Right from the get-go, everyone is wondering who the next Iron Man will be. As I mentioned, after Homecoming, he's completely content with being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Now folks, this may be a new thing for you, but this is called character development. You can keep core values of a character consistent across multiple movies, but it's boring to recycle the same character arc in every single movie. The Raimi trilogy doesn't get this. Peter's arc in every movie is struggling to be Spider-Man and live a personal life at the same time. He also has relationship issues. And Mary Jane is a whore. She's an awful character. In this scene from Far From Home, Happy literally tells Peter that he will never be Iron Man. Flat out. They're impossible shoes to fill and it just won't happen. Tony may have passed the torch to Peter in one way or another, but he trusts Peter in a way he doesn't trust many other heroes in the MCU. He's still a kid, but Peter's more than deserving of everything Tony's given him. If you watched this scene and thought, man, this is dumb, I don't want another Iron Man, he's not. Peter is his own character, he's Spider-Man, not Iron Man. That was the message of the whole movie. Also to trust your Peter tingle, but anyway. One last thing I want to mention before I end this video, massive spoilers coming up. If you haven't seen Far From Home yet, please don't watch any more of this video. I genuinely want everyone to experience this on their own. Still here? Alright. So the mid-credit scene of Far From Home plays breaking news footage featuring J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. My theater cheered when he came on screen, as did I. My poor girlfriend sat there having no idea what the big deal was. Believe me, it's a big deal. Now, two things happened here. First, the surprise of J.K. Simmons reprising his role, and J. Jonah Jameson reveals doctored footage of Spider-Man and Mysterio's final encounter. In this video, Mysterio sabotaged Spider-Man to look like the villain and reveals Peter's identity. This is a huge development and a massive cliffhanger. I'm genuinely upset that I have to wait a minimum of 2 years to see what happens next. I walked away from the theater thinking, that was fucking awesome. The next day I'm watching a review of Far From Home where a guy is complaining that it's too early to reveal his identity. He's too young. He's not out of high school yet. I'd play the video, but I can't find it for the life of me, so I'm just gonna put quotes up there. This is a young Peter Parker. Like it or not, we may not have that much longer with Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Contracts end and studios decide to go different routes. And this next film is going to be the third Spider-Man MCU solo film. What do you mean it's too early? The same Raimi movies never revealed his identity, and I feel like that heavily restricted the writing team. With the reveal of Peter's identity now, it opens up a whole lot of threats, allows the writers to explore possibilities of real stakes and life of Spider-Man in a world that knows who he is. We've never seen that. It's just another example of people not liking something because it's different. It's a good writing decision, like it or not. The scene also sets up the conflict of Spider-Man being a vigilante in the eyes of the public. The Raimi movies did this pretty well, but this guy doesn't mention it. It's a great way of setting up conflict, and I'm personally looking forward to whatever this team has to show us next. Final thoughts. Far From Home delivers on everything you would expect from a Spider-Man movie and more. It ramps up stakes and takes action set pieces to a whole new level from the original. The cast does a great job, Jake Gyllenhaal does a fantastic job as Quentin Beck, Tom Holland and Zendaya have great chemistry, which makes their relationship in the movie that much more believable. Really, everyone in this film does a great job, even the less important side characters. While some jokes don't land, and some scenes could have been cut shorter or altogether, the movie flows really well and makes for a competent narrative. I may have to watch it another time to get a more solid opinion of it, but I would say it's not quite as good as Homecoming, but still stands on its own as a solid sequel.